a titanic figure tearing apart angels and demons alike. They called him the verdant angel, the fleshquake, the one who breaks chains. By M41.815, the ecclesiarchy had declared all such imagery heretical. The punishment? Death by suffocation in paint. But it was too late. The idea was loose. The myths of mankind in the dark centuries that followed, entire subcultures of imperial faith arose around the myth. Each told it differently, shaped by hunger, fear, and despair. 1. The cult of the broken saint believed the creature was the emperor's unacknowledged twin, banished for wrath. They carried miniature effigies carved from jade, their faces twisted in agony. They believed pain was prayer. 2. The Ashborn Brotherhood, miners who claimed the Green Titan lived beneath the crust of their worlds, holding up the sky so it would not collapse. They beat their chests before mining blasts, so he would not wake. 3. The Children of Gamma, an offshoot of tech heresy cults, who believed he was the machine god's first experiment, a fusion of atom and soul. They sought the green light, recreating radiation with forbidden reactors until their own bodies glowed. None of them knew the truth, but somewhere, in the void between stars, the truth walked. The Hulk between worlds. Bruce Banner no longer knew how much time had passed. Time in the warp was a cruel illusion. Seconds stretched into centuries, centuries collapsed into heartbeats. When the explosion of Vandros 9 had torn open the veil, the Hulk had been pulled between realms. He wandered through storms of thought and nightmares. Demons attacked him, calling him the anger without end. They tried to bind him, but the Hulk's fury burned through even their immaterial flesh. Their forms melted, screaming, dissolved into raw warp energy. But the warp did not die. It adapted. It whispered to him, "You are like us. You are made of hate." He roared in answer, and for a time, even the warp was silent. The first record of his return in 998 M41, near the edge of Segmentum Obscurus, a world called Real Prime vanished from Imperial Voxgrid for 12 hours. When contact resumed, its surface was molten glass. An orbital pict record, corrupted and flickering, showed only 3 frames of footage before system failure. A green meteor entering atmosphere. A humanoid shape amidst fire. A word, scrawled in burning letters across the ground itself. Leave. The ORKS hear the story. No one spreads stories like the orcs. They didn't care for imperial censorship, nor inquisitorial purges. They loved tales of strength, of something so big and angry it could smash worlds barehanded. Among them, the myth changed. To orcs, the green god was not an emperor's weapon. He was one of them. They began to call him the biggest, greenest Gitdir ever was, or simply, the Hulk. They painted their armor emerald, shouting his name before battle. Whack! Hulk! In some warbands, it was believed the Hulk was Gork and Mork made flesh, a god come to test their might. They fought harder, laughed louder, and when the warp echoed with his distant roar, entire sectors drowned in orc invasions. The chaos interpretation, meanwhile, in the Eye of Terror, things took a darker turn. Chaos sorcerers tried to summon him, the anger that walks. They failed, but each attempt warped the worlds they stood upon. Some demons began to mimic his shape. Green, massive, eternal, their laughter trembling through the warp storms. The word-bearers declared him a fallen primarch, a brother forgotten by the emperor, condemned to endless fury. They wrote scriptures of the 13th Rage, in which the emperor himself begged forgiveness from his wrathful child. He was made to protect man. He was made to bear their pain. But man betrayed him, and now he bears only hate. And so chaos claimed him, though he never claimed chaos. The imperial truth when the Grey Knights encountered a demon world that had turned entirely green. Forests of radioactive glass, oceans boiling with anger. They investigated. They found no demons, only destruction. Their psychers collapsed under waves of psychic feedback described as pure wrath. The Grand Master's final words before the world imploded into the warp. He does not belong here, but this galaxy deserves him. The world was struck from records. The science of sin somewhere in the cold laboratories of Mars, the Muggos biologists debated the possibility of the Hulk's existence. A theory emerged that he was a fragment of some pre-imperial weapon, a man fused with an energy form unknown to Mechanica science. They analyzed the residual gamma traces from Vandross 9. The radiation signature matched nothing in Imperial databases. It was not warp, not fission, not fusion. It was rage given mass. One Muggos dared speak aloud the heresy. If emotion can create power, then the soul itself is a reactor. He was executed within the hour, but his words lingered. And deep beneath Mars, experiments began, forbidden, greenlit experiments, on the emotional frequencies of the human genome. The Omnissia's priests were trying to build a Hulk. The lonely voyager far beyond them all, drifting through warp and void, Banner tried to find silence. But silence was impossible. Everywhere he went, he heard echoes of the same thing, suffering, worlds screaming, billions dying. In that endless sea of war, his fury was no longer unique. It was common language. He saw worlds where children were raised in chains, where men were flayed for prayer, where faith was weaponized like oxygen. Every sight pressed against him, swelling the rage until the stars shook. He punched one world apart, literally. A single strike split its crust. Oceans boiled. He wept afterward, though the tears burned green. In the warp, the demons watched him, afraid. The human legend grows back in the Materium. 1,000 years later, Imperial historians rediscovered fragments of the Seraph archive. They labeled the being Subject G001, possible perpetual. Churches quietly began adding verses to the Imperial Creed. Beware the wrath of the nameless guardian, who burns worlds to spare them suffering. Most priests erased those lines. Some did not. On a pilgrim world named Sanctus Vire, statues were built, enormous, hulking, green. The ecclesiarchy burned them. The people rebuilt them from the ashes. Faith had found a new god, whether the Imperium liked it or not. The unseen age, the Hulk, became a rumor, then a metaphor, then a threat mothers used to quiet children. But in the grimdark future, even myths leave footprints. Entire fleets reported anomalous gravitational signatures shaped like fists. Planets vanished, not consumed, but smashed apart. Everywhere, radiation spikes marked his passing. And sometimes, on dead worlds, inscriptions appeared carved into glass or stone. Stop hurting each other. Why won't you listen? I just wanted peace. To most, they were indecipherable Xenos runes. To a few, they were scripture. The darker truth, but there was another truth. One that none in the Imperium ever spoke aloud. Banner was losing himself. The longer he stayed, the thinner the line between man and monster became. The warp fed on emotion, and he was an endless feast. His rage became weather, his thoughts became storms. In some systems, the stars turned green as he passed. He was no longer a traveler. He was becoming a force of nature, a new law of physics. And yet, in his dreams, Banner still whispered for forgiveness. The beginning of the END by M42.005, the galaxy had begun to fracture anew. The cicatrix maledictum burned across reality, and half the Imperium fell into the dark. Somewhere near the edge of that galactic wound, an emerald light stirred. The Hulk had returned. He had seen too much. He had felt the pain of 10,000 dying worlds. He had endured the screams of every living soul echoing through the warp. And finally, even Banner broke. He no longer cared where he was, who lived, or who ruled. All he wanted was silence. The story of his first arrival was only prologue. The real war, the war against existence itself, had only begun. But that is a story for another chapter. The sun does not rise here anymore. When the sky glows green, we hide. We pray. Sometimes we survive. Confession of a lay brother, Hivagrona, M42.013. We live by the light of reactors. The sun died years ago, or maybe it just gave up on shining through the ash. Our world, Agrona Delta, is one of those forgotten manufactorum planets, the administratum files under conditional compliance. Conditional means we are loyal when watched, and watched only when useful. Every day begins the same way. The sirens scream at third bell. The shifts march into the foundries. The air smells of oil, blood, and burnt metal. We whisper our morning prayers to the emperor, though most mouths just move without sound. But lately, the priests have changed the words. They no longer mention the emperor's light. They speak instead of his wrath, of the green fire that fell once before and might fall again. They say he watches us through the clouds. They say he tests us, weighs us, and will crush us if we displease him. We believe them. We've seen the sky turn green. The green sky the first time it happened. I was a child. The air went still. The reactors dimmed. Then, a faint shimmer above the horizon, like aurora made of sickness. The priests fell to their knees. The overseers screamed for everyone to keep working. Hours later, the earth trembled. Buildings shuddered. Glass exploded. And far away, beyond the ash fields, a pillar of green light pierced the clouds. It didn't destroy us, but it watched us. For days after, we felt it. The hum in the ground, the sense that something vast and angry had passed nearby. We worked faster after that. We prayed louder. That was 20 years ago. Now the priests call it the green season. Every century, the Hulk passes through this sector, or so they say, and each time, worlds burn. So we pray. We build faster. We keep our heads down in case he looks this way again. The Church of his wrath, they used to call it the Church of the Emperor's mercy. Now the sign reads, Sanctum Irae, the Church of Wrath. Inside, the statues are different too. The old emperor, thin and golden, has been replaced by a hulking figure made from slag iron. Arms like engines, eyes burning with painted light. He carries no sword, no halo, only fists the size of tanks. The priests say this is how the emperor appears when angered, that the Hulk is not a separate being, but his righteous fury made flesh. Every day, the faithful gather to flagellate themselves with chains dipped in green dye. The smoke of burning oil fills the aisles. The choir chants, He smashes and we are cleansed. He burns and we are pure. Some leave those services smiling, believing their suffering has pleased him. Others vanish into the foundries, whispering that if the Hulk returns, he will free them from the yoke of overseers and nobles alike. Heretics, perhaps, but in a place like this, hope itself is heresy. The factory song we sing while we work, not out of joy but out of habit. The machines are deafening. Singing keeps the rhythm steady, the mind dull. Some verses are ancient, some newly made. One goes like this: green light come, we duck our heads, ash rain falls, the guilty's bled, hammer down, the strong survive, Hulk is watching, stay alive. We don't know who wrote it, maybe someone who saw him once. When a reactor flares and turns the sky emerald, everyone freezes, even the overseers. We whisper the refrain under our breath until the light fades again. The ghost in the sky last cycle. A cargo ship fell from orbit. The Voxcasters said it was a malfunction. The workers said it was his hand. They say the Hulk walks among the stars, leaping from planet to planet. They say he punishes worlds that spill too much blood. They say he leaves the guilty buried in their own factories. Some believe he travels with a shadow, a whisper that calls itself banner. They say it weeps before every strike, begging forgiveness. We don't know what's true anymore, only that sometimes, when the night winds blow through the steel chimneys, we hear a low, distant roar, and every child hides beneath their cot. The pilgrims of pain once every few cycles. The pilgrim caravans come through. They travel from world to world, barefoot across poisoned deserts, dragging massive effigies of the green saint made from scrap. Their bodies glow faintly, poisoned by whatever relics they carry. They wear bone necklaces, each bone painted emerald. They preach no salvation, only endurance. He does not promise peace. One told me once, smiling through cracked lips. He promises to break the chains. Whether you live afterward, that is your test. They moved on the next morning. The local magistrate had them executed at the gate, of course. But the effigy remains, no one dares melt it down. It still stands outside the foundry, half melted, weeping rust whenever the wind blows. The Mechanicus secret, the priests of the machine god are the only ones who do not fear the Hulk. They study him. Every few years, a red-robed Mugos arrives, flanked by servitors. They collect samples of soil, dust, air. Sometimes they bring caged mutants and whisper of gamma communion. A rumor began last cycle that a wanderer was seen beyond the ash dunes. Tall, cloaked, skin faintly green in the moonlight. He helped a child trapped under rubble, lifted the debris with one hand, then walked away before anyone could thank him. Some say it was a mutant, others say it was him. If true, it means he still walks among us. If false, well, we keep working anyway, because one day the sky will glow again, and when it does, we'll know if he was watching all along. The end of our days now. I am old. My lungs are metal and my blood hums faintly with green light from the factories. The priests say it's corruption. I say it's faith. The world still turns. The machines still scream. The Hulk hasn't returned since the hand. But the heartbeat never stopped. It's softer now, deeper underground, like a drum keeping time for the dying. And maybe when our last reactor fails and our last prayer fades, he'll rise again. Not to save us, not to destroy us, just to remind the stars that once even rage had a soul. Faith is not a shield here. It is a hammer, and I am the hand that swings it. The iron spiral. I serve the Sanctum Irae, the Church of his wrath, on Agrona Delta. My title is Meaningless Adept of Penitential Administration, Grade 4. In truth, I count bodies. How many prayed today? How many bled? How many screamed the right words before dying? Our hierarchy is as intricate as the machines that crush grain into dust. At the top sits High Prelate Veraxis, a man whose bones glow faintly from the green oils he bathes in, calling it communion. Below him, ranks upon ranks of administrators, confessors, collectors, and enforcers, each one believing their cruelty serves the divine purpose of him, the Hulk, the Green Wrath, the Emperor in fury. We call our system the Iron Spiral, each level tighter, each turn bloodier, and at its core nothing but fear. 2. The origin of control. It began decades ago, when the Hulk's fury first scarred our world, the hand in the earth. The people saw a god. The rulers saw an opportunity. Faith, after all, is cheaper than food. If you teach the starving that their hunger is sacred, they'll thank you for it. The ecclesiarchy's scribes rewrote entire catechisms overnight. The emperor's visage was repainted in shades of emerald. His wrath became virtue, his silence, divine mystery. By the time the first sermons echoed through the manufactorums, the people no longer feared the overseers. They feared the green gaze, a concept more powerful than any whip. 3. The Ministry of Penance. My duties are simple. I maintain the records of the penitential convoys. Each week, workers accused of slack faith are loaded into transports. They are sent to the craters of communion, the irradiated valleys where the Hulk's hand once burned the ground. They rarely return. Those who do are changed. Their eyes glow faintly. Their skin cracks in patterns like broken glass. They do not speak, only smile, serene, gentle, terrifying. We parade them through the hab blocks as touched ones, proof that his wrath purifies. The people kneel as they pass. No one asks what happens inside the craters. 4. The secret chamber below the sanctum lies a forbidden vault, the vault of gamma reliquaries. Only those of the spiral's inner circle may enter. I've seen its doors once. Thick plasteel, engraved with a handprint larger than a tank hatch. Behind it, they say, lies a fragment of him, a single drop of blood, sealed in stasis. The Mugos biologists from the Adeptus Mechanicus come often, whispering in their mechanical tongues. They bring tubes, cages, gene vials. They call the project Pattern G, Reclamation. We, the clergy, call it Resurrection. The people think we worship his legend, but those within the vault believe we can recreate him. The prelate's dream. High Prelate Veraxis once told me his dream. He said he stood on a dead world, surrounded by bones that whispered his name. The sky was green and alive, and before him stood a shape of muscle and rage. A titan, barefoot, breathing like thunder. Veraxis said he spoke to it. He asked the creature, "Are you the Emperor's wrath?" The titan replied, "No, I am your consequence. Varaxis woke screaming. The next day, he ordered 1,000 workers executed for faithless silence. He told the people their deaths had bought them another century of mercy. They believed him. We always believe the man who offers meaning to pain. 6. The Inquisitor 3 months ago, an Inquisitor arrived. She came unannounced. Inquisitor Kalen Draz, Ordo Hereticus, her seal old and blackened. Her armor bore scratches shaped like claw marks, her eyes hollow from too many truths. She requested no escort, no parade, just access to the vault. Varaxis trembled at her presence. He welcomed her as if she were a saint. But after she entered the vault, the lights flickered across the entire hive. When she emerged 2 days later, her robes were burnt, her hair gone white. She said only, "He is not dead, and you are playing with his ghost." Then she left. The prelate forbade her name ever be spoken again. We erased her from the records. But I remember. Sometimes I think she wasn't warning us. She was warning him. 7. The cult of Green Dawn. Not all power flows downward. Some grows upward from the cracks. A new sect has taken root in the lower hab blocks. They call themselves the cult of Green Dawn. They do not fear the Hulk's wrath, they invoke it. They believe every act of rebellion, every outburst of rage, is holy. They paint themselves with phosphor oil, burn machines, tear banners. They chant, "Let the green fire judge us all." To the ecclesiarchy they are heretics. To the people they are martyrs. The more we purge them, the stronger they grow. Every execution feels like watering a seed. 8. The archives of sin. In the bowels of the sanctum lies a library, the archives of sin. Every whisper, every confession, every thought deemed unworthy of his gaze is recorded there. I read them all. It is my task. Some plead forgiveness for theft or lust, others for blasphemy, but most simply say, "I am angry," and those are the ones that terrify the prelate most, because anger is contagious. And if the people ever realized that the Hulk's rage was not divine but human, if they understood it was born of pain, not holiness, the spiral would collapse. That is why the records remain sealed. Why I remain alive, for now. 9. The failure last month. The Mechanicus activated a new experiment, Subject Alpha 13. A vat-grown soldier, infused with gamma-radiant matter, recovered from the crater. They called him Saint Regulus, the Green Blade. He lasted 7 seconds. Then the screams began. The walls turned molten. The Muggos evaporated into steam. What remained was not a man, but a void of fury given form. It crushed its containment chamber, tore through 6 decks, and fled into the wastelands. We've lost contact since. The priests claim it was the Hulk reborn. The Muggos call it data loss. I call it Judgment X. The green shadow returns last night. The sky pulsed green again. Not bright, faint, like a heartbeat seen through clouds. The Vox systems glitched. Every servoskull whispered the same phrase in binary static. He remembers. The prelate ordered silence. But even he could not hide his shaking hands. We all know what it means. The last time the sky glowed, the Hulk walked. And every false god burns when the true one returns. 11. The price of faith. I've begun writing my confessions on this cogitator scroll, encoded, hidden among the archives. If you are reading this, it means the sanctum has fallen. Maybe the people rose. Maybe he did. Maybe both. Do not believe the sermons. Do not trust the banners. The Hulk is not our God. He is our reflection, the fury we buried so deep we had to worship it. And if he truly returns, we won't be spared because we prayed. We'll be spared only if he still believes we're worth forgiving. 12. The final entry. The sirens are screaming again. The reactors pulse green. I can hear the tremors, deep, rhythmic. Something massive is walking through the city. Every glass pane shivers. The walls crack. The prelate has sealed himself in the vault. The people are outside, cheering and weeping all at once. The Hulk has returned to Agrona Delta. I can feel him. The air tastes like ozone and tears. My Vox recorder shakes as I write this. He isn't roaring. He's mourning. Everywhere he steps, the ash turns to crystal, the machines fall silent. It's beautiful and terrible. I think he's looking for something. Maybe the handprint he left. Maybe us. Maybe forgiveness. The walls are cracking now. Green light floods the sanctum. I can see his shadow through the glass, vast, muscular, human. And for the first time in my life, I'm not afraid. Because in that glow, I finally see it clearly. He isn't the Emperor's wrath. He's the Emperor's regret. The sound before the END, there are no words in High Gothic for the sound he made. Not roar, not thunder, not explosion. It was pressure, the world itself remembering what it feared. The Vox towers burst one by one. The auspexes went blind. Even the orbital sensors of the Vigilant Fleet reported a single repeating phrase in their data streams. Mass undefined. Anger incarnate. And somewhere beneath the dead cities of Agrona Delta, a billion souls began to whisper in unison. He walks again. 2. Testimony of Sergeant Lauren VCH, PDF Forces. We thought it was another quake. Then the horizon moved. At first it looked like a storm rolling across the plains. Dust, fire, and green lightning swirling in a single spiral. Then a shape emerged inside it. A figure, tall enough that the manufacturum spires only reached his waist. Skin like burning emerald. Eyes that glowed like reactor cores on the verge of overload. He wasn't running. He was walking. Slow, deliberate steps, each one flattening a square mile of ruins. Every seismic meter in the command center went red. The Auspex officers prayed aloud as they reported. Target advancing. Estimated mass unquantifiable. Pattern reads as humanoid. Colonel Vass ordered orbital strikes. It didn't matter. The lances fell from orbit, searing lines of light across the sky. But when they hit, he barely turned his head. He took a breath and the flames went out. We could hear it over the storm, that deep growl. The kind that rattles your bones, not your ears. The colonel started crying. He wasn't afraid for himself. He was afraid because, for the first time, he believed. 3. The priest of lies, High Prelate Varaxis, locked himself in the vault of gamma reliquaries. The air was thick with incense and burnt ozone. He stared at the handprint engraved in the plasteel door, larger than a Baneblade's hull, and whispered prayers through cracked lips. Forgive your servant, O Green Lord. I kept your flame. I punished the weak. The walls groaned. Dust fell from the ceiling like ash. A green glow bled through the cracks. And a voice, deep, quiet, ancient, spoke through the metal. You punished because you feared. You ruled because you were small. I am not your god. The plasteel door bent inward, folding like wax. Varaxis fell to his knees. The glow consumed him, and for a moment, the whole vault was filled with light. When the light faded, nothing remained but robes and ash. 4. The worker in the crater, her name was Lessa Dorn, Observator, former miner, 31 cycles old. She had lost her husband to the faith raids, her child to hunger. She never prayed, but when she saw the green fire in the sky, she ran toward it, barefoot, bleeding, unthinking. The crater of communion was alive again. The stones glowed with veins of liquid light, and in the center the Hulk knelt. Steam rose from his shoulders. He wasn't roaring. He was weeping. Each tear that fell carved a new river in the ash. The air shimmered with heat and sorrow. Lessa didn't run. She walked closer, close enough to feel his breath, warm, heavy, like a storm at rest. She whispered, "Are you here to destroy us?" He looked at her, eyes glowing brighter than suns, and said quietly, "I already did." Then he stood, and the wind itself seemed to kneel. The child and the shadow in the hive ruins. A child drew him on the wall with chalk. No one told her what he looked like. No one had to. Every child on Agrona Delta remembered. Their dreams had been green for weeks. The drawing was simple, just a giant with sad eyes. When the Hulk passed by her hab window that night, he slowed. For a moment, his shadow covered the world. And the child, unafraid, pressed her small hand to the windowpane. A green glow answered. The glass didn't break. It healed, cracks vanishing under the light. The next morning, the child told her mother, "The green man smiled at me." Her mother wept, not from fear, but because she realized, for the first time in her life, something in this universe had looked at her child and not wanted to hurt her. 6. The Inquisitor's return. Inquisitor Kalandraz watched from orbit. Her ship, the Aegis Mournful, hung in low geosynchronous position over Agrona Delta. Her sensors burned out one by one. Her bridge crew refused to look at the viewports. She stood alone, gaze fixed on the planet. "So it's true," she whispered. "The anger never died." Her astropath screamed until his skull burst. The ship's machine spirit begged for disconnection. Kalan activated the last forbidden archive, Project Gamma, Terra's lost son. The screen showed old, forgotten footage. A man, naked, human, frail. Chains, needles, gamma light flooding the room. A voice saying, "Dr. Banner, the experiment must proceed." She stared. "Banner," she whispered. That was his name. Then she ordered silence. "Purge the ship. Leave no witness. He belongs to the warp now." 7. The voice of the people. The lower hives erupted in chaos and worship. Some threw themselves before the Hulk steps, crying for redemption. Others cursed him as the destroyer of gods. Some tried to shoot him, lost fire burning like fireflies against his skin. He ignored them all. When he reached the Sanctum Irae, the crowd parted. Millions of faces, eyes reflecting green light, and for a heartbeat the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. He looked at them, not as a god, not as a beast, but as a man who'd seen too much of his own reflection. He spoke softly, but his voice carried across every Vox channel, every mind, every heart. "You built this world on anger. I was your example. I was your curse. But I am tired." Then he did something no one expected. He knelt. The Hulk, breaker of worlds, destroyer of gods, knelt before humanity. And the people wept. The fall of the spiral. When the priests saw him kneel, their power broke. The sermons went silent. The banners caught fire. The great cogitator shrines began to melt, their circuits running like tears of metal. The iron spiral unraveled in a single night. The people flooded the streets, not rioting, not fighting, just walking, as if waking from a long nightmare. They tore down the statues. They burned the icons of the Green Emperor. No one gave the order. They just knew. It was over. 9. The Hulk and the stars. When dawn came, or what passed for dawn through Agrona's ash sky, the Hulk stood on the ridge above the crater. He looked up at the stars, his massive hands trembling slightly. His voice, deep and broken, echoed through the planet. Banner wanted to save them. Hulk wanted to protect them. But this place, this galaxy, only understands pain. He clenched his fists, and the crust of the world groaned. "I can't fix them, but I can remember them." And then, for the first time, he smiled, small, sad, human. The green light that had haunted the planet for generations flared one last time. The sky turned emerald. The clouds vanished. And when the light faded, the Hulk was gone. Aftermath. No one knows where he went. Some say he walked into the warp itself. Others claim the orcs saw a vision, a green giant laughing in the stars. The ecclesiarchy denies everything, of course. But on Agrona Delta, people still tell the story. They call it the day the god knelt. And every year, when the sky glows faintly green, they whisper, "He's still out there, watching, angry, human." 11. Narrator's reflection. In the end, the Hulk's tragedy became the Imperium's mirror. His rage was their faith, his pain their scripture, his disappearance their redemption. They learned nothing. They forgot again. The wars continued. But somewhere, between the stars, maybe a shadow still walks, silent, green, infinite. And when the next world falls, maybe it will feel the earth tremble again, and remember the name of the man who screamed against gods and refused to die. Hulk, Banner, Wrath, Hope. Whatever they call him, he was never their monster. They were his. They called it Vandros 9, though few in the Imperium remembered why. A planet of ash and rust, orbiting a dying sun that glowed like a bleeding wound in the void. It was the kind of world the Administratum forgot to delete from their records, a mistake that kept millions alive just long enough to die in obscurity. Hulk fell there like a comet. The sky tore apart as he came through, wrapped in green fire, his roar echoing across the clouds. The ground buckled under the impact. An entire continent cracked, oceans evaporated into steam, cities turned to glass. The planet didn't take kindly to his presence. The crust shuddered, volcanoes spewed black flame, and warp lightning crawled across the sky. Hulk rose from the crater, molten rock clinging to his skin, and for the first time since he'd entered this cursed galaxy, the world itself seemed to fight back. The wind screamed words not born of air. "You don't belong here." He didn't care. Hulk never did. He began to walk. From the watch fortresses on Vandros 9's equator, the Adeptus Mechanicus looked on in terror. Their augurs had seen the object fall from the void. Not a ship, not a pod, but a living thing. A Muggos whispered, a biometallic warform, or a demon, perhaps both. No one dared correct him. The Skitarii were deployed, ranks of crimson and brass, bionics glinting in the dim sunlight. They formed lines across the blackened dunes, readying plasma casters and arc rifles. When Hulk approached, they fired. The first volley lit the horizon, energy beams slicing through smoke and dust. When it cleared, Hulk was still walking. Burn marks smoked across his chest, but his eyes glowed brighter. The second volley came. He ran this time, a thunderous charge, faster than any flesh thing had a right to move. He smashed through the first line, scattering Skitarii like insects. Metal bodies split, gears and blood spraying into the air. He tore a tank apart with his hands. He used another as a hammer. In the control spire, Muggos Terek stared through his optics feed. "He cannot be flesh," he rasped. "No biomass resists plasma this way. No bone fractures thus." Another voice, thin, reverent, answered, "Perhaps the Omnicia tests us." But even faith faltered as the green giant reached the fortress walls. He struck once, and the gate, 30 meters thick, folded inward like paper. Mechanicus guards fell from their perches, crushed under falling debris. Inside, servitors screamed prayers to machine spirits that no longer listened. Hulk crushed through the corridors, slamming metal doors aside. He wasn't looking for anyone. He wasn't even angry at them. He was angry at the world. At every world. Hours later, the fortress burned. From orbit, the Imperial Navy watched the surface through their Auspex arrays. Every city was aflame. Muggos Terek's signal went silent. The Voxnet carried only static, and one deep, rhythmic sound that no one could explain. It was the sound of breathing, something enormous. Admiral Vexer ordered Exterminatus Protocol Delta to be armed. "If it's a demon, the Emperor wills its annihilation," he said. "But if it's not," whispered his adjutant, "then we pray it burns all the same." But before the orbital bombardment could begin, the planet itself convulsed. Warp storms coiled around Vandros 9, swallowing it whole. The last transmission from the surface was an image, a vast, green silhouette, roaring into the sky as the world shattered beneath him. Then nothing. Weeks later, Vandros 9 was gone from the charts. The Mechanicus labeled it M41.993, planetary data corruption. But the story spread. Among the pilgrims and the heretics, the story changed. They said a god had fallen to Vandros 9. A god who had broken a world with his bare hands and roared in defiance of both man and demon. Some said he was Korn's favored, a new avatar of wrath. Others claimed he was a lost Primarch, born too late for the Emperor's dream. The orcs, when they heard, simply shouted, "Ulk, he's the biggest lad deer is," and for once their gods seemed to listen. That was how the legend began. A world destroyed, a green titan rising from the ashes, and a name whispered in the warp, the Green Beast of Vandros 9. But that was only the beginning, for in the deep void, Beyond the reach of the Astronomicon, a hive fleet stirred, and it had tasted the psychic echo of Hulk's rage. The galaxy itself had taken notice. The warp is not a place. It is a wound that never closes, a sea of emotion so vast that gods drown in it. And when Hulk tore the sky of Vandros 9 apart, when his rage split reality itself, that scream did not die. It echoed. It rolled through the immaterium like thunder through an ocean of madness. It made demons pause in their torment. It made dead stars flicker. It made the gods look up. Korn in his throne of brass, seated upon the skulls of empires, Korn turned first. He who is rage and slaughter, he who cares not from whence the blood flows, only that it does. The echo of the green beast reached him as a pulse of raw fury, unshaped by thought, untainted by deceit. Perfect rhythm of wrath. Every heartbeat a war drum. Korn leaned forward, his laughter shaking the pillars of his fortress. At last, something that fights for no prayer, no God, no cause. Only the purity of anger. Only the truth of the fist. Below him, a billion warriors, dead, alive, and damned, howled his name, and for a moment, their cries were drowned by another. The sound of the Hulk's roar reverberated across the throne world, and Korn smiled. "He is mine," the blood god declared. "He just doesn't know it yet." Sench far away, where color and logic twisted into impossible shapes, Sench, the changer of ways, unfolded his laughter into 1,000 voices. To him, the Hulk was chaos incarnate, a paradox of intellect and instinct, order and rage, a mortal mind shackled to infinite strength, forever shifting, forever rebelling against fate. Sench saw the pattern beneath the destruction, the potential. He whispered through the warp. He was a man once, a thinker, a maker of formulas. The creature is the equation, and I have always loved impossible math. 1,000 avian eyes blinked in unison. Threads of possible futures flickered. The green titan breaking demon worlds, toppling planets, even shattering a Primarch's blade with his hands. Sench smiled a secret smile. Korn can keep his brute rage. I will take the mind beneath it. Nurgle in the garden of rot, among blossoms of disease and laughter that smelled of decay, Grandfather Nurgle turned his head. He felt the Hulk's pain before he saw his strength. Every wound that never healed, every moment of guilt buried under anger. It all called to him like the scent of a newborn plague. He chuckled warmly, swatting a demon fly from his face. "Poor little thing," he said softly. "So angry because he hurts, so strong because he breaks." A rotting vine sprouted from the ground, forming the image of Hulk crouched amid ruin, his breath ragged. Nurgle caressed it like a proud gardener admiring a difficult bloom. "He would be beautiful in my garden," he murmured. "A flower that never dies, forever wilting, forever blooming again." Pus dripped from his lips as he smiled. "I shall wait. Sooner or later, everything finds comfort in rot." Slaanesh, and then there was the youngest, the most radiant, the most terrible. Slaanesh, the dark prince of excess, watched from a throne of living pleasure, surrounded by echoes of screams and sighs. Where others saw rage, Slaanesh saw ecstasy. Every roar of the Hulk was a symphony of release. Every shattering strike, every explosion of fury, it was catharsis incarnate. The god shivered in delight. "He feels everything," Slaanesh whispered. "Pain, rage, guilt, power, all unfiltered, all unending. He is a masterpiece that never stops playing itself." The Prince of Pleasure leaned forward, eyes gleaming with violet fire. "Let the others fight over his soul. I only want his scream." The warp stirs, and so it was that the four looked upon him, not as prey, nor as foe, but as reflection. Korn saw rage. Sench saw contradiction. Nurgle saw suffering. Slaanesh saw sensation. Each reached out across the veil, extending tendrils of thought and temptation. And though the Hulk did not hear words, he felt them. In the silence of the void, his dreams began to twist. He saw a world of brass and skulls where warriors bowed to his fury, a garden of peace where he could rest and decay forever, a storm of laughter that promised release, and an endless labyrinth of knowledge that whispered, "You can undo what you became." He woke roaring, fists clenched, as warp lightning split the black. "Leave Hulk alone." The echo tore through reality itself, a ripple that sent demons fleeing back into the dark. And for a moment, just a heartbeat, even the gods paused. The mortal had resisted their call. But the warp never forgets, and those who draw its gaze are never truly free. Somewhere in the screaming tides of unreality, a pact unspoken was made, a contest between gods. Who would claim the green beast first? Who would make him theirs? The dice were cast and the galaxy trembled. The light of the Astronomicon pulsed like a wounded heart, faltering across the immaterium. On the golden throne, the Emperor's half-dead eyes twitched. A ripple of disturbance in the warp. Something wrong, something ancient and new at once. The custodes guarding the Sanctum Imperialis felt it too. A shiver, subtle but unmistakable. The Emperor's mind, eternal and unbending, turned its attention toward a single point in the galaxy. A world torn by battle. A green titan raging beneath a black sun. "He does not belong," came the psychic echo, faint as a whisper through a dying star. Far below, on the battlefield of Tharsis Ultima, the Hulk roared again, louder, deeper, like tectonic plates grinding. The Imperial forces had thrown everything at him. Baneblades, plasma artillery, orbital strikes, and even a company of Grey Knights. None of it mattered. Each blow only stoked the furnace in his chest. Each scream, each round of bolter fire only deepened his fury. His muscles swelled until armor plates shattered against his skin. His skin burned like a dying sun, veins glowing emerald with gamma wrath. The Grey Knights formed their sacred circle, chanting wards against demons, against chaos, but not against him. He was not of the warp, nor of the materium. He was something between, a creature born of science, rage, and sorrow, a paradox no scripture could name. "He's stronger than a greater daemon," shouted Brother Captain Edric, his armor cracked and steaming. "He is Eno Daemon," answered another voice grim. "He is the anger given form." Hulk tore through their silver line like thunder through clouds, slamming one knight into the dirt so hard the ground itself trembled. Warp wards flared and died upon contact with his fists. They tried to banish him. Their psychic chants screamed through the immaterium. But instead of being repelled, he answered, "Leave me alone!" His voice echoed, raw and broken. The psychic backlash annihilated 100 minds instantly. And somewhere deep within the Palace of Terra, the Emperor heard him. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Emperor's lips moved. A single word escaped his dust-dry throat. "Banner." The custodes gasped. The throne hummed with unnatural resonance. Across light years, the Emperor reached out, his mind brushing the Hulk's. And in that moment, the two titans touched. Bruce Banner opened his eyes within the storm. He stood, impossibly, outside his body, staring at himself. The Hulk, kneeling in a crater of ash and bone, breathing like a god of destruction. Around him, the galaxy burned, stars flickering, worlds cracking. And beyond that, a vast golden figure. "You have torn a hole through the ages." The Emperor's voice boomed, vast and calm. "You should not be here." Bruce trembled. "I didn't mean to. I wanted to stop the pain. I wanted to stop the rage." "You are rage," the Emperor said, "and you are guilt. You are a wound upon existence, and a reflection of humanity's own sin." "Then end me," Bruce whispered. "You can't you?" The Emperor's form shimmered like a burning halo. "I could," he said softly, "but I will not. For you are proof that even gods can suffer for love." And then the vision shattered, the warp screamed, and the Hulk awoke. When his eyes opened again, the stars were gone. He stood on a field of glass and corpses, with nothing moving except the dust of ash in the air. Every Imperial weapon lay silent, every soldier dead or fled. The gray knights had vanished into the mist. In the distance, a single voice spoke through a broken Vox transmitter. A faint echo from orbit. "All units, stand down. The Emperor has decreed. The green beast is not to be destroyed." The Hulk looked up into the stars, where a light burned across the warp. He did not understand. He only felt tired, and for the first time since his arrival, his fists unclenched. He sank to his knees, breathing slow, and whispered, almost gently, "I didn't want this, but the galaxy is cruel to those who show mercy." From the far edge of the system, a ship emerged. The Black Legion flagship Vox Mortalis, its prow wreathed in warp flame, and upon its bridge, Abaddon the Despoiler watched through auger lenses. "The Emperor fears him," Abaddon said, smiling thinly. "That makes him useful." He turned to his sorcerers. "Prepare the warp nets. The beast will serve chaos or die screaming." The Hulk lifted his head. He didn't know who they were, but he could feel the hate in the sky, and something deep within him, something infinite, stirred again. He whispered one word, "Try," and the warp trembled in reply. There were screams in the warp that no mortal ear should ever hear. Not words, only intentions, the kind that melt the soul before the skin. Across the Eye of Terror, the warp shifted like a living sea, tides of madness drawn toward a single gravity. Abaddon the Despoiler, the War Master, stood before the shrieking heart of his fleet, 1,000 void ships hanging in the hell-lit gulf. His voice was calm, colder than the void, deeper than the hatred that birthed his purpose. "He bleeds the warp," Abaddon said, "a mortal weapon wearing flesh, the green god who denies chaos its due. He will fall, or the stars will." His war council, champions of ruin, sorcerers, demon princes, spoke in fear disguised as reverence. None dared question why the War Master would hunt a single creature when the Imperium itself was ripe for destruction. But Abaddon knew something they did not. The Hulk's rage distorted the warp itself, bending it like a wound that refused to close. If left unchecked, this creature could tear a hole so vast that even the gods would drown in it. And so the trap was set. Sinai, the lure of the Cadian wastes, the world below, was once part of Cadia's orbit, a shattered moon now called Grendhal's tomb, an imperial fragment of rock turned graveyard, perfect bait. Across its obsidian plains, Abaddon's forces carved sigils of hatred, binding demons in a false promise of release. Warp storms were summoned, feeding illusions of suffering, millions of phantom souls crying for salvation. And somewhere across the stars, the Hulk heard them. The warp doesn't speak in words, but in emotion, and what it sent him was pain. A cry for help, something human. And Bruce Banner, wherever a shred of him still existed within the storm of rage, answered. When he tore open the void and landed on Grendhal's tomb, the planet screamed. The impact cracked the crust, flung fire into orbit, and silenced 1,000 false souls in one breath. For a moment, the Hulk stood still. His green form was blackened by ash and blood, his breathing deep and guttural. A titan trying to understand the mockery of humanity around him. Then the warp shifted. Chains of sorcery rose from the ground, molten light forming blades and hooks. They wrapped around his limbs, his chest, his throat. Abaddon's trap had sprung. Scene 2, the Despoiler descends from his flagship vengeful spirit. Abaddon watched through hollow scrying and warp projection. The Hulk was bound, knees sunk deep in slag, his eyes glowing through the dark. Demons swarmed around him, each a shard of nightmare. And still he didn't die. Even as warp blades dug through his spine and ichor sprayed across the void, he roared. Not in defiance, in anguish, a roar that split the air, bent metal, and sent several sorcerers screaming as their skulls burst under psychic feedback. "He resists the will of the gods," hissed one of Abaddon's lieutenants. "He is a god," Abaddon replied, "but not yet, and that makes him mine." The War Master descended in person, black armor dripping with demonic energy, the Talon of Horus humming with the echo of 10,000 slain worlds. The Hulk turned, recognizing power. His nostrils flared. He smelled death and war and something old. Two monsters faced each other on a world that no longer deserved a name. Abaddon raised his sword, Drachnian, a blade that drank the light of reality. "You are no demon, no man. What are you?" Hulk's voice was thunder, distorted by the warp itself. Angry, they collided. Scene 3, the War of the Warp Titan. There are no words in Low Gothic for what followed. The planet cracked open like glass under the weight of their fury. Each swing of Abaddon's blade unmade gravity. Every punch of Hulk shattered space like a drum of creation. Lightning burned black. Time slowed. The warp bled. Demons were crushed between them like insects. Chaos Space Marines were vaporized by shockwaves they could not see coming. And through it all, the Hulk grew stronger. The more Abaddon struck, the angrier he became. The angrier he became, the less the warp obeyed its master. Abaddon, for the first time in an eternity, felt something alien. Fear. "He feeds on fury," he growled, voice trembling behind his helm. "He is the storm." Even Drachnian, the demon blade that had consumed suns, screamed as Hulk's fists met it again and again, until the sword's edge cracked. Abaddon unleashed the gifts of the gods. Nurgle's rot poured from the sky. Korn's rage boiled through the ground. Sensh's lies turned the air into illusion. Slaanish's whispers tore through Hulk's mind, offering peace, glory, release. But there was only one truth inside him: rage. He tore through it all. A green colossus walking through hellfire, his blood glowing brighter than any warp sigil. Scene 4. The breaking of worlds. The warp around Grendel's tomb began to collapse. The planet's core imploded under the pressure of their fury, folding into a singularity of hate and light. Imperial astropaths across nearby systems screamed and went blind. Chaos fleets lost contact with reality. Even demons forgot their own names. And in the midst of that dying storm, Abaddon, broken armor, bleeding black, reached out to the warp and called upon the power of the gods directly. The sky tore open, revealing the eyes of four gods watching. They poured into him every ounce of hate, pride, corruption, lust, and fear, forging him into a weapon beyond mortality. He struck Hulk one final time, a blow that could have split a continent in half. And for the first time, the Hulk fell to one knee. The warp howled in victory. But as Abaddon raised Drachnian once more, the Hulk's eyes snapped open, twin suns of green fire. "You won't like me when I'm angry." And then he broke the warp. Scene V. The silence that followed. No one knows what truly happened next. Some say the Hulk punched a hole through the fabric of the Eye of Terror itself, creating a rift that swallowed half of Abaddon's fleet. Others claim he and the War Master were both consumed by the warp, locked in eternal combat inside a dimension of rage and despair. The Imperium records only fragments, warp echoes, visions of a green titan screaming inside the Immaterium, forever at war with the gods themselves. On some demon worlds, cultists still whisper of him, the green doom, the fleshquake, the anger that devours angels. On others, he is worshipped as a lost Primarch, a weapon the Emperor abandoned because even he could not control it. But those who saw it, those who felt it, tell only one truth. The warp was never the same after the Hulk came. And that was only the beginning. There is a silence that follows the end of worlds. Not peace, never peace, but the absence of everything loud enough to be called life. That was the sound that filled the warp when the Hulk tore it apart. The stars around the Eye of Terror dimmed. Astropaths bled from the eyes and begged for death. Demons hid in the folds of unreality, trembling, whispering the same name again and again. The green god walks. For once, even the warp feared. Sinai, the birth of a god. He awoke not on a planet, not in space, but in thought. The warp folded beneath his feet like black water. Oceans of soul fire surged, painting his reflection across the infinite. But he was no longer the man who fell through the rift. There was no banner left, only the echo of him, wrapped inside the endless hunger that called itself Hulk. He looked down at his hands. They glowed with green veins of power that pulsed to the rhythm of the warp itself. He had become part of it, and it of him. Every rage-born death across the galaxy, every soldier's last scream, every zealot's fury, every orc's laughter at slaughter. All of it fed into him. He didn't want it. He didn't even understand it. He only felt it, the pain, the fury, the injustice, and it grew until his very breath turned the warp to storm. Where he walked, demons ceased to exist. Not destroyed, unmade, their essence scattered, their memories erased. For he was not like them, he was not of chaos. He was rage without corruption, the one thing the gods could not bend. Scene 2. The gods fear the four sat upon their thrones of ruin and looked down at him. Korn, whose fury defined all war, growled in contempt. Yet even he flinched. He rages without worship. He kills without offering skulls. His fury is pure, and I cannot claim it. Sench, the weaver of fate, gazed into the timeline and found it burning. He is a paradox that cannot be written. He acts without purpose, yet reshapes destiny. Nurgle smiled, but his garden wilted where the Hulk's presence touched. He rejects decay. He rejects surrender. He refuses the end I offer. Slainish, ever the whisperer, reached out with temptation to soothe the storm, but when her touch grazed his mind, it burned. There is no pleasure in him, only wrath. I cannot seduce what only knows pain. And so the gods turned their eyes away. For the first time in the age of chaos, they retreated. The warp itself shuddered under his breath. Galaxies flickered like candlelight. Dreams of mortals became nightmares, and nightmares reality. Scene 3. The lost banner. Somewhere deep within him, something small stirred. A voice that did not belong to the god, but to the man. Bruce Banner. He spoke to himself in the dark void. You can stop. You don't have to fight anymore. But there was no answer. Only the pounding rhythm. The endless echo of heartbeat and thunder. Hulk smash. Hulk smash. Banner wept, though no tears could exist in that place. He remembered Earth, the quiet between battles, the people he'd failed to save. And he realized the cruelest truth. The further his rage spread, the less of Bruce remained. Every time someone in the galaxy grew angry, the Hulk grew stronger. Every time someone felt fear, hate, or despair, his voice roared in the warp again. He had become the god of emotion itself, and it was killing him. Scene 4. The Pilgrims of Fury. Centuries passed. Time had no meaning in the warp, but mortals still tried to measure it. Rumors of the Green God reached the Imperium. Some said he was the Emperor's last weapon, a forgotten guardian of Terra who had turned against the gods. Others believed he was the fifth Chaos God, the one who rebelled against his siblings. Entire cults formed around him. They called themselves the Pilgrims of Fury. They prayed not for mercy, but for vengeance. They burned their own worlds, believing their anger would awaken his blessing. And in rare moments it worked. Across distant battlefields, when Imperial guardsmen were surrounded, when space marines fell to chaos, when orcs and tyranids tore worlds apart, a green flash would appear. An echo, a shadow, a titan made of energy and pain, walking through tanks like mist, ripping demons apart with its bare hands before vanishing again. The Imperium denied his existence. The Inquisition hunted those who spoke his name. But among soldiers, one phrase lingered like a prayer. The Green God is watching. Rage, and he will hear you. Scene V. The end of all rage. There came a moment, no one knows when the Hulk realized he could never die. Not in the warp. Not in reality. He had killed gods, destroyed worlds, ended wars before they began. But still, he lived. Each century, he grew quieter. Not calmer, but emptier. The rage that once protected him had become his prison. He no longer remembered why he was angry. He no longer remembered who he was. The warp became silent once more, yet it pulsed with green light. Faint, rhythmic, eternal. Some say he sleeps now, buried in the deepest storm of the immaterium, chained by his own mind. Others say he wanders between realities, appearing when a world reaches its breaking point, when rage itself becomes the only weapon left. But those who have seen him, those who truly looked into his eyes, say that he is not a god. He is what gods fear becoming. Scene 6. Epilogue. The whisper on Cadia. 1,000 years later, a young guardsman knelt in the ruins of Cadia. His regiment had been slaughtered, his commander executed. He prayed not to the emperor, but to the memory of a legend. "Please," he whispered, "help me." For a heartbeat, the air grew heavy. The dust began to rise. And then, in the reflection of his cracked visor, he saw it. A faint green shimmer in the void. A massive hand resting on his shoulder. No words, no promises, only a feeling that swallowed him whole, fury enough to live. And as the young soldier stood again, eyes burning bright in the smoke, the warp rippled like a heartbeat across the galaxy. "Hulk," it whispered, still angry, "and thus ends the tale of the Green God, the rage that the warp could not consume."